In this video, I want to explain how a few pieces of fairly new energy technology can come together and offer new possibilities for you, and in particular in the small off-grid energy system world. So let's get right into it. This is an overview of the system I'm talking about. And what it offers you is the chance to have small amounts of power off the grid in a portable package that operates completely silently most of the time and also is not limited by a fuel supply. So I'll be explaining more about why this is useful, but just off the top of my head, camping, you've got a cabin that's off grid, you want to pump some water, you want to light some lights, you want to charge some devices, and also, in fact, and I'll get to this later in the video, a very good method for having an absolutely blackout-proof food preservation system, especially if that blackout goes on for a long time. So what you see here on the screen is a portable power station. That's the yellow and silver thing there, and then a photovoltaic panel on a ground-mounted stand. So let's get into some of the details now. Advantages, as I've mentioned: portability, silent operation. You don't need fuel. This is a really important thing, especially if a blackout lasts for a long time. 3 or 4 days, gas stations are going to be out of fuel, even if you can get to them. If there's been a severe weather event, you might not even be able to get to a fuel station to keep your generator going. Generators are great, but they do have that limitation. So what I'm talking to you about now is fuel-free in most cases, and that's why it operates indefinitely, as long as the sun is shining. And at the end of this video, I'm going to show you a system that we've set up here at our place where we can keep food frozen forever. Even if we have a year-long blackout or if fuel is simply unavailable, we still at least have the ability to preserve food in a freezer. So let's look at the different parts of the system now, and I'll fill you in on some details. So this is the large portable power station, and it's the heart of the system, really. What it is an internal battery, an internal lithium battery. It's also got what's called an inverter, which changes the direct current that's stored in the battery into alternating current, which is what plug-in things need. Now you can use the power here, the direct current power, directly without conversion. There are ports on these machines for that. But in many cases, it makes a lot of sense to go the AC route if that's what you've already got. And in most cases, AC stuff is everywhere in our places. Now this unit, and I'll talk about this some more, this is a 1600 watt unit, which means that it can put out 1,600 watts at the most at any given time. Now that's a really important number, because now that some of these devices have reached that stage, we can do things that we couldn't do before, like operate a toaster oven, a microwave, a kettle, things that take a fair amount of power, and of course less power too, and charging, lights. Even a household water well pump does not generally draw as much as a kettle, say. So these units have now reached the point where they're large enough to be able to handle those loads. They're not just for little things anymore. Now, as I said, this is a fairly large one. I'm going to be telling you about an even larger one that I have as part of my food preservation system, but this is the heart of the system. It stores electricity, it provides electricity, and it can accept inputs of power for charging. And those inputs can come from photovoltaic panels, solar panels, which is the ideal. You can also recharge them from a wall outlet if you do have power. And also a generator can also top up the charge as well. So more on that later. So the solar panel, this is kind of the other heart of the system. And this is what makes the continuous fuel-free power supply offering work. This is approximately a 100 watt panel here. That's about the size of them. They're, maybe 3 feet long or so. The ground stand is very important because not only is it collapsible, but you can set it up anywhere you want on the ground and adjust the angle of the panel as well for maximum output. So something like this is the second main part of the system. And it's surprising how well it works, too. I've been fooling around with these for more than 5 years now. And it's quite surprising how that power charge will build up in the battery of the portable power station when the sun is shining. Now, how big of a panel do you need? Well, that depends on the quantities of electricity that you're going to be consuming. So not just the peak amount, 1600 watts, as I mentioned for that previous unit, but also the kind of runtime you want from that between charges. So how much power you're going to use, say, when it's cloudy or at night or things like that. So a little more on the sizing the panels later in this video. Now, I mentioned before that this system is fuel-free, and it is, as long as you've got sufficient solar panel capacity to keep up with your power use. Then you'll never need to burn any fuel. You'll never need to have a small inverter like this. But if you're really depending on the system, like for instance, if you've got a cabin or home in an off-grid situation and the solar panel can keep up with your electrical demand most of the time, well, then that's great. But what if you get a long stint of cloudy weather? What if you're using more power than you normally do? These sorts of things can deplete the battery in the power station, and it means you don't have any power. So if you're really relying on this, then I do recommend some kind of a small inverter generator for topping up that battery when the photovoltaic panels cannot handle it. It's up to you to decide whether this is something that you want to gear up for. But I do mention that this is an inverter generator. Inverter generators are more refined than regular generators. They're quieter. They use less fuel. They can vary their engine speed with the electrical load being demanded. So they're really a very, very polite way of getting electricity from a liquid fuel like gasoline. And the outlets here can simply power the charging of that portable power station if it's necessary. Now, this is something that that I've enacted here at my house. This is at our place. This is in a light commercial building we use for different business operations here, and it serves three family households right now. So I got to thinking, if there's a long-term power outage, and such things are possible, if there's a long-term power outage, what are we going to do about food? Even if we grew a garden or had some animals that we could eat or anything like that, it's still super, super handy to have a freezer. So this is a 22 cubic foot freezer, and it can be powered essentially forever. If the grid never came back, we still can preserve our food this way. You'll see the portable power station on the left. This one has about twice the runtime of the first one that you saw in this video, so it gives a little more flexibility. And that accordion, that black accordion-like thing on the lid, that's a solar panel, a photovoltaic panel. It converts sunlight into electricity. Now, I normally wouldn't have this on top of the freezer. I only put it there for the photo. Normally, it would be outside feeding power into that portable power station through a cable, and that keeps things going forever. This is a normal freezer. When I was thinking of gearing up for a long-term food preservation, I thought, well, should I get a propane freezer? They make them. Or should I get a DC, a direct current powered freezer that would allow me to sidestep the need for alternating current? I said no to both of those options for two reasons. Mostly because those freezers, those specialty freezers, are quite a bit more money than a regular AC plug-in chest freezer. And the second reason is service and things. These specialty freezers use different technology than most repair people are used to dealing with. So that was another drawback. The big question is, what sort of solar panel capacity will I need to keep up with the energy demand of the freezer? Because the freezer can work without solar panels at all, just drawing off of that power supply. In my tests, I've found that that supply can keep the freezer going for about a day without any inputs. So how many watts of input do you need to keep things going, even when it's cloudy, even when nighttime comes, all the rest of it? Well, the answer depends. And it depends on your situation. How much sun do you get where you live? How many consecutive days of cloudy weather are you going to run into? I think that generally speaking, anywhere from 4 to 800 watts of solar power will keep a large freezer like this going indefinitely. But I don't recommend you go out and just buy a bunch of solar panels and plug it in and see how it works. What you need to do is start small. Start with a panel or two, and then just monitor. How well is this panel keeping up with the charge requirements of the power station? You'll learn a lot about your specific situation with that kind of exercise. And you might find that 300 watts is fine, maybe 6 or 7 or 800 watts isn't quite enough. You'll learn how it works, and you'll be able to fine-tune the system quite easily because these solar panels can be connected one to the other. So it's very easy to add more panels if you want to. Now, this panel arrangement you see here, that provides 200 watts, and you can add any number of other panels to it. Don't forget, they're outside, so they don't have to sit on top of your freezer or take up room in your house or anything like that. They're going to sit outside. One simple cable coming in will deliver the power you need, and you're good even when there's a long-term outage. And there can be. Various organizations have been warning about the hazards of what's called an electromagnetic pulse event, EMP. And that's something that can happen, and essentially it could put the grid down for months or even years. It probably won't happen, but it's pretty significant if it does, and I, for one, want to be prepared for that. So just to recap, these systems are portable. They can be used anywhere, up to generally 1,500 watts of output. They're even larger now, too, and they keep getting better and keep getting larger all the time. Silent operation. You don't necessarily need fuel, although it's nice to have generator backup if you're relying on the system. But because it doesn't necessarily need fuel, operation can go on indefinitely. And, of course, the food preservation issue is something I've never seen addressed anywhere else, but I think it's worth considering. And who knows, one day it might make all the difference. Thanks for watching.